Hello. Hello and welcome to this exemplified read-through of Zoneinfo module documentation of Python standard library. Now, before we look at Zoneinfo, I would ask you that whether you have seen previous 3-4 videos, because if you have not, it will be difficult for you to follow. So I think in the last video or one before that, we had this problem where the DSP clock was moving forward and backwards. So for this time, that is 13th March 2016 at 5 o'clock, the clock shifted. Okay, so 6 was 1 o'clock EST, and then at 7 UTC it was 3 EDT. There was one problem when clock was going forward. Now 2 is missing. The worst problem was when the clock was coming back, that is on 6th November 2016. You see, for two different UTC times, we had the same time in EDT. So this is problematic. So to solve this kind of problem and make calculations easily, we have Zoneinfo. Now what Zoneinfo helps us with? Time zone convergence. It helps with the DST calculations, ambiguous times like we have seen, or non-existent times. It helps with UTC conversion and time arithmetic across DSP transitions. So this is the next module after date time, which we have covered. So this is what we are going to look at in the documentation. But before we go and look at this documentation, let's look at an example program. So these two lines print 60 is equal to signs, and then we are creating event in UTC. So we have a date time object and Zoneinfo we pass as UTC. So this is a message stored in database. We have meeting UTC here. So it is a great idea that you keep all your time in UTC time zone. Now we display to users this time zone meeting underscore UTC in different time zones. The time zones picked are Asia, Kolkata, East America, New York, Europe, London, and Asia, Tokyo. And we iterate over this dictionary, and whatever the value is there, we pass it to as time zone, and then we use the strft time format specifiers to print the local time. Then we compare across time zones. So meeting UTC is in Asia, Kolkata, and America, New York. And then we print India time and New York time, and then we compare them. Then we do some arithmetic. We add 7 days and 10th meeting and next meeting are here. Next meeting is after 7 days. Then we do the DSP ambiguation. We take a Zoneinfo of New York and we take a date, that is 1st of November 2026, and then we take another date there with fold 1. So first 130 and second 130 are printed, and then we print the UTC time of that. Next code is another date time object, 21st December 2026, and this is a nav date time. It does not have Zoneinfo. And we replace the TJInfo object by a Zoneinfo object of Asia, Kolkata. So we have nav time and other time, and then we convert between time zones. We take Indian time, and convert it to Europe, London, and we have that. And then we have current time in multiple cities. So we have this zone in this array, and we iterate over them, and we get the current time in that zone. Then we handle invalid time zone. We have a Zoneinfo here. We try to create an object, and if it is not found, we print the error. Then we have some real world example. So there is a local event in India, okay, and we have that event, and then we convert that to UTC time zone, and we store it in database. And then for New York, we take this UTC time zone and convert it to New York time zone. And then another event time for Asia Tokyo time zone. So if you want, I can run this program. Okay, I was doing something. So we have this. So we run this python space jedi.py, and we have all the output. So we can go ahead and verify the output. And with this, we will proceed to the documentation. The important thing is that this time zone was not found. It was a caught exception, and other outputs are all as expected. Okay. So now let's start the Zoneinfo documentation read through. We don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore. Okay. The Zoneinfo module provides a concrete time zone implementation to support the IANI time zone database as originally specified in TEP 615. You can go ahead and click this link and read about it. By default, Zoneinfo uses the system's time zone data if available. If no system time zone data is available, the library will fall back to using the first-party TZ data package available on PyPy. This module does not work or is not available on WebAssembly. See WebAssembly platforms for more information. Using Zoneinfo. Zoneinfo is a concrete implementation of the datetime.tjinfo abstract base class and is intended to be attached to tjinfo, either via the construction that datetime.replace method or datetime.asTimeZone. So we have this time zone and we take a time in America, Los Angeles, and we print it. So you see this time is 7 hours behind UTC. And then we print the TZ name as well, which is PGT. Date times constructed in this way are compatible with the date time arithmetic and handle daylight saving time transitions with no further intervention. So for all the existing time zones in the world, we are safe and we can use the library. That is the whole point of reading the standard library. For all the time zones which we have, we don't need to implement any TZ info abstract class for any place. Okay. And then we had this one and we add time delta 1 day and it increases. Okay. These time zones also support the fold attribute introduced in the 495 during offset transitions, which use ambiguous times such as a daylight saving time to standard time transition. The offset from before the transition is used when fold is equal to 0, and the offset after the transition is used when fold is equal to 1. For example, we have this time zone and we print when, and we replace the fold by 1. So you see the time zone lag increased by 1 hour. When converting time from another time zone, the fold will be set to the typed value. So we have this PDT time zone, and then we convert it to UTC. No, we don't convert it to UTC. We have a date time here in UTC. Now we take this UTC and we convert it to PDT, that is Los Angeles time zone. Then we have when UTC, that is the current time in UTC, that is this time object in UTC, and we add 1 hour and we finally convert it to Los Angeles time zone. You see around this time we have a DST transition here because we increase it by 1 hour date time object, but rather than 1 becoming 2, it is becoming -7 to -8. That signifies that during this period a clock shift has occurred for DST. Now we talk about data sources. The Zoneinfo module does not directly provide time zone data and instead pulls time zone information from the system time zone database or the first-party PyPy package TZ data. If available, some systems, including notably Windows systems, do not have an IANI database available. And so for projects targeting cross-platform compatibility that require time zone data, It is recommended to declare a dependency on TJ data. If neither system data nor TJ data is available, all calls to zone info will raise zone info not found error. Then we have configuring the data sources. When zone info key is called, key is the time zone. The constructor first searches the directory specified in TJ path for a file matching key, and on failure looks for a match in TJ data package. This behavior can be configured in three ways. The default TJ path, when not otherwise specified, can be configured at compile time. TJ path can be configured using an environment variable. At runtime, the search path can be manipulated using the reset TJ path function. Let me show you how this works on Linux. Okay. So there should be a file called etc local time. We have that. Now we look at what is inside it. So it is some binary. Okay. Now we do ls-l/etc local time. So it is pointing to this user share zone info. If you look at this, we have all the major time zones, and if you look at Asia, we have the exact time zones of all the places. Excuse me. So this directory zone info contains all the time zones of the world, and Python library relies on this to fetch the time zone. Okay. Compile time configuration. The default TJ paths include several common deployment locations for the time zone database. One more thing is that Windows does not contain this data, so you will have to rely on TJ data package. Except on Windows, where there are no well-known locations for time zone data. On POSIX systems, downstream distributors and those building Python from source who know where their system time zone data is deployed may change the default time zone path by specifying the compile time option TJ path, or more likely the configure flag -- with TJ path, which should be a string delimited by os.path separator. Separator. On all platforms, the configured value is available as the TJ path key in sysconfig.getConfig var. So okay, you can print this variable and you will see the TJ path key here. Environment configuration. When initializing TJ path either at import time or whenever reset TJ path is called with no arguments, the zone info module will use the environment variable Python TJ path if it exists to set the search path. Now we have Python TJ path. This is an os.path separator string containing the time zone search path to use. It must consist of only absolute rather than relative paths. Relative components specified in Python TJ path will not be used, but otherwise the behavior when a relative path is specified is implementation defined. Python will raise invalid TJ path warning, but other implementations are free to silently ignore the erroneous component or raise an exception. To set the system to ignore the system data and use the TJ data package instead, set Python TJ path is equal to empty string. Then we have runtime configuration. The TJ search path can also be configured at runtime using the reset_TJ path function. This is generally not an advisable operation, though it is reasonable to use it in test functions that require the use of a specific time zone path or require disabling access to the system time zones. Now we look at the class. Constructor takes an argument, that is the time zone name. A complete datetime.tzinfo subclass that represents an IANA time zone specified by the string key. Calls to the primary constructor will always return objects that compare identically. Put another way, barring cache invalidation via zoneinfo.clear cache. Oops. Where did I go? Okay. Yeah. Clear cache for all value of key, the following relation will always be true. So we create two zoneinfo with the same key and we do a comparison whether A is B or not. Key must be in the form of relative normalized POSIX path with no up-level references. The constructor will raise value error if a non-conforming key is passed. If no file matching key is found, the constructor will raise Zoneinfo not found error, which we have already seen. The Zoneinfo class has two alternate constructors. One is from file, another is from no cache. So it takes a file object. It creates Zoneinfo object from a file-like object returning bytes, that is, file open in binary mode or io.bytes IO object. Unlike the primary constructor, this always constructs a new object. The key parameter sets the name of the zone for the purposes of str and wrapper functions. Objects via this constructor cannot be pickled. Value error is raised if data read from file instead obj is not a valid tj if file. So the files which we saw are tj if files. Then we have no cache method, an alternate constructor that bypasses the constructor's cache. It is identical to the primary constructor but returns a new object on each call. This is most likely to be useful for testing or demonstration purposes, but it can also be used to create a system with a different cache invalidation strategy. Objects created via this constructor will also bypass the cache of the DC learning process when unpickled. You have to caution, using this constructor may change the semantics of your date times in surprising ways. Only use it if you know what you need to do. Then we have several other methods. We have a clear cache. So a method for invalidating the cache on the Zoneinfo class, if no arguments are passed, all caches are invalidated. And the next call to the primary constructor for each key will return a new instance. If a table of key names is passed to the only keys parameter, only the specified keys will be removed from the cache. Keys passed to only keys but not found in the cache are ignored. So again we have the same warning. Then we have the attribute, only one attribute it has. The class has only one attribute, that is key. This is the time zone name actually. For zones constructed from file without specifying key parameter, this will be set to none. Although it is somewhat common practice to expose these to end users, these values are designed to be primary keys for representing the relevant zones and not necessarily user-facing elements. Objects like CLDR, the Unicode Common Local Data Repository, can be used to get more user-friendly strings from these keys. Then we have representation, string representation. So string basically prints the time zone, that is the key. It simply prints the key. And then we can print the date time in ISO format and tzinfo. Tzinfo will also print the wrapper value, that is the time zone. For objects constructed from a file without specifying a key parameter, str falls back to calling rep. Zoneinfo rep is implementation defined and not necessarily stable between versions, but it is guaranteed not to be a valid Zoneinfo key. Now we have pickle serialization. I think I will skip this part because we have not covered pickle. So then we have functions, available timings. So we will come back to this. Make sure you remind me when we finish pickle. Okay. Then the function on the object is available underscore time zones. Get a set containing all valid keys for IA and I time zones available anywhere on the time zone path. This is recalculated on every call to the function. This function only includes canonical zone names and does not include special zones such as those under the POSIX or and write directories or the POSIX rules zone. This function may open a large number of files, as the best way to determine if a file on the time zone path is valid time zone is to read the magic string at the beginning. These values are not designed to be exposed to end users or user-facing elements. Applications should use something like CLDR to get more user-friendly strings. So we have seen the cautionary note. Then we have reset underscore tj path, which sets or resets the time zone search path for the module. When called with no arguments, tj path is set to the default value. Calling reset tj path will not invalidate the Zoneinfo cache, and so calls to the primary Zoneinfo constructor will only use the new tj path in the case of a cache miss. The two parameters must be a sequence of strings or os.pathLike and not a string, all of which must be absolute paths. Value error will be raised if something other than an absolute path is passed. Then we have some global, one of them is tj path. So we have seen this many times, and it's the same thing. By now, we very well know what period path is does. And if you want, you can go and look at configuring the data sources. And we have two exceptions. And we have seen both the exceptions. One is Zoneinfo not found error, and another is invalid period path warning. So with this, we come to the end of Zoneinfo class. And in the next video, we will talk about calendar. We will have some examples. This is somewhat larger, so it might take 2 videos to finish this. So I will end this video here, and we will meet again after 4 days with calendar video, and we will look at the example first, and then we will look at the documentation. Okay. So I hope that you're enjoying this playlist and enjoying the read through of standard library. I know it is boring, but I try to give concrete examples so that it is less boring and more hands-on than just reading through. So once again, I thank you for watching the video, and we'll meet again after 4 days with another video. Till then, I will take my leave, and you should keep practicing and learning more about Python and what other modules are useful. So thanks a lot for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, enjoy and have a nice day.